Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Welcome to the Simple Reflections podcast. Today I'm joined by Denise Holland. Denise is a human performance consultant, transformative coach and speaker, and mainly works with sports people. She was the coach, national coach for Scotland in netball, and competed for Hong Kong in the World Championships on a couple of occasions, which is just amazing. She's coming to us today from Kent, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with her. Welcome.
Thank you, Dave. It's great to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity.
No, you're very welcome. We've only met briefly in the past through chance encounters at the Three Principles UK conference in London, and I was just caught by your energy and enthusiasm for life, and then you sort of dropped off my radar for a bit. Your name sort of been in the back of my mind, but it disappeared. And it was through a conversation with Matt Roberts just before Christmas, I think, that your name popped back up again. So I thought I'd capitalize on that and strike while the iron was hot. So thank you very much for agreeing to be here. I was wondering, what it was that first caught your imagination with the principles, and what brought that into your world in a way that you're now sharing it with people with sort of fairly high pressure environments that they're working in, and how valuable that is for them.
Yeah, so my story, and I've said my story a few times now during this last, 11 years since, I suppose, my epiphany and the moment at which I realized, oh my word, am I really making this all up? And that was, just as a little backstory, is I actually left my role as Scotland national coach prematurely, if you like, 18 months out of the Commonwealth Games in 2014. And I'd done the job for 4.5 years, and we'd moved from 17th to 12th in the world, and we'd got ourselves a nice invitation as the top 12 in the world without a pink ticket being the host in Glasgow. And so to leave that role prematurely was, to remain professional. We mutually and respectfully agreed to part company, but it was painful. It was a painful time for me, and it was my dream job, and I put my life and soul into it. And I was driving home, really, down, as you do, down the M6, driving my little car home from Scotland, and I pulled into a service station, and I literally held my hands up, I think it was, in WH Smith's, and said, please, can you give me something to keep me occupied for the next 6 months? Because this really hurts. This is really painful. And there was Jamie Smart's book called Clarity sitting on the shelf. And I was like, okay, then. And I took it without hesitation. And it was just an incredible moment. And the next few weeks, I sort of plowed through Jamie's book, and something started to stir. And I did finish it, but it led me to Michael Neill's book, Inside Out Revolution. And it was about 6 weeks after, and I was a complete wreck, really. I was not being a great parent to my children. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And, I had come basically to a point in my life where I didn't know what to do. And all of those mental skills that I had for nearly 25 years of being an elite athlete and as a national coach, they were nowhere to be seen. And I thought, well, surely I can cope with this. Surely I can deal with this. And there was nothing. I had nothing to pull on. And suddenly, after reading Michael's book, I was staring into the mirror, and I was really just looking into my eyes in the mirror, as you do. And I had this moment of, well, am I really making it all up? And that was the first moment. And I realized, oh my word, I don't have to take my experience that seriously. I really saw the truth in the transient nature of our experience, that I was projecting it. And I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to do that to myself. So, irrespective of the circumstances, I had the capacity, I knew in a moment of truth that I had the capacity to feel okay. And I cried and laughed and cried for the whole weekend. I was a blubbering wreck because I knew I'd come across something that was really profound but ultra simple. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I'd known this all my life, but I'd lost it. I'd lost sight of it. I knew it was intrinsic to my being, but it wasn't real for me in my experience until that moment. Mm. And that's when I mean, literally, Dave, my whole experience of the situation transformed. And I didn't ever look back. And actually, 18 months later, we went to the Commonwealth Games with some of my old management team, and we had a lovely time. And we supported the incoming coach and the Scottish Thistles with all of our heart. And that wouldn't have been possible for me. That would have been a painful 18 months listening to O Flower of Scotland, a national anthem that I had come to sing and representing Scotland in over 50 caps, over 50 internationals all over the world in preparation for the Commonwealth Games. That wouldn't have been possible for me. It would have been too painful. But in that transformation, I guess I just came back to the heart and soul of human life, and that actually I knew I was already okay, and that I knew that I wasn't my thinking. I wasn't what was going on in my mind in any one moment, because that's changing. And if I was my thinking, when my thinking changes, I would change. I would be no more. And I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Having that realization for yourself, as many of us have, what allowed you to shift that on to, right, okay, I can help others with this? What was it that took it from a realization at home in front of the mirror to the work that you're doing today with people, all over the place and all different levels of the sporting arena?
It's a good question, but it's one actually that it really wasn't a decision. It felt instinctive to me and intuitive. And I knew this is what I would do for the rest of my life. Like, I knew that. And it was, well, if this has happened to me, oh my word, I felt like a child who had, just got all of the presents. And I just felt really, really gifted in that moment. And that if it happened to me, it could happen to anybody. And all I had to do was to help them, tap them on the shoulder, help people to see two things. One, how does experience work for all of us, no matter what's going on? And two, how amazing are we as human life? Like, what is that intelligence that allows our lungs to breathe and our hearts to beat without us doing it? And then when I looked into that deeper, I can talk about the zone state of optimal functioning, which is what I then saw as, oh my word, when I used to go into that zone state as a player, that's all that was happening. All that was happening is I was just touching the essence of life. I was just in alignment with this incredible intelligence that allows me to express through my human body and mind. And so as a sports performer, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's who I really was. I thought I was Denise and needed to get into a state of optimal functioning.
Hmm.
And that's not it. What if I was already that state? I was already an incredible expression of perfect energy, and that I could nurture and leverage that knowing such that I could perform optimally way more of the time.
Hmm. It's an exciting proposition, and something that freaks people out when they hear it. It can't be that simple. No, that's not true. That's not my experience. All of the sort of yeah, but questions that come as a result of that. Um, how does a sports person who is struggling in their world in some way, in the shape of the way that they are performing, come across you and this understanding in a way that allows them to be open to explore that when all else looks like it's a done deal. This is a busted flush. There's nothing happening here. I'm done. What is it that brings people to your door, I suppose?
Yeah. And I think Dave, you've pointed out is if you imagine there's this spectrum, if you like, of human performance, and we have along that spectrum is we have those that are really, if you like, struggling with their game, can hardly just really falling out of love with it. And at the other end there's those that are highly engaged and highly inspired and looking for marginal gains. All right, so we have the entire spectrum of human performance. And I'm making that up, but just in terms of an analogy. So for me, if somebody is listening and they want to get more out of themselves, or they want to, and this is really pertinent right now, is they know they have a talent, but they're not enjoying it. It's become arduous. It's become a real battle, a real fight. And we've heard this before, the difference between striving and thriving. And it's very much, isn't it? It's very much, for me, looking at, I can help athletes to go inwards and see, well, where are you playing from? When did you tell me about when you loved the sport? Tell me what it felt like when you really loved it, and how long ago was that? And what did it feel like? And most people will go back to when they were a kid. Most people will go back to describing to me the fun and the exhilarating feeling of just playing, which Play Freely is the title of my upcoming book, and I'll talk about that later. But I help people to see that is still there. That doesn't go anywhere. But it gets covered up by, I'm not enough unless I'm achieving. I'm not enough unless I'm winning. I'm not enough unless I'm doing well. And that's all a judgment issue. So if I can help people to see through their perspective and to come from a place of, if you like, innate resilience, innate connection, that which is behind our inspiration and our love for the sport, then they can be free again to explore what's possible through the body and mind. And it's the difference between, if you like, explorer attitude, being curious and exploring, being open-minded, versus striving and being determined and persevering. And I get that we need to put the work in. Of course we do. But where you come from is everything. If it's loaded up with insecurity and it's loaded with a feeling, a sense of lack, then you're always going to be involved in the activity to reach your goal. It's like reaching it rather than busting through the boundaries of limitation.
Mm.
And there's the difference. And I see it time again, people completely surprised by what it is they have achieved simply because their mind is free more of the time.
Mm-hmm.
We're all human and we all get caught up in the illusion of how life works, that we're not good enough, we need to do things to be okay. The illusion of the world out there gives me my feeling state. And then we get the illusion of being a victim. And I get it. And my heart goes out to people. And, me too. But the more we see the truth of how life works, the better life gets. Mm-hmm. And the more productive we get, the more effective we get, and the more fun we have.
Yeah. Yeah, fun is something that I don't know if it gets a bad name for itself, but it's seen as being unprofessional. Thankfully, that's never really fitted into my worldview. I've always tried to have fun wherever I am, despite the fact that other people might think it's unprofessional. But for me, it's if I'm feeling a sense of fun, then I am more aligned with who I am, and if I can bring that fun to whatever it is that I'm doing and whoever I'm with or working with in that moment, then if that fun starts rubbing off on them, I know they're getting closer to realizing who they are in that moment. And yeah, it's fantastic. And I love the title of your book, Play Freely. Sounds like my kind of thing. So you mentioned you would talk about it later. I was wondering if we could talk about it now, and I wonder when you're thinking about it being published. Is that something that's on the horizon, or is it still TBC?
Well, it is on the horizon. I mean, I have been writing this book for a couple of years, and it's not on my time frame. There seems to be divine timing here, one might say. But my inspiration is to have it on the shelf by October this year. And I have now committed to working full time on it, apart from my client work. So I've kind of dropped all my other little projects, and this is my main focus. So the developmental edit is almost complete, and it'll be going for editorial assessment the 1st of April. And we'll get it on the shelves for October.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you find you're mainly working one-to-one with individuals, or is there, given your experience as a coach, and working with groups of people, that you're actually spending time working with groups of sports people? How does that work out?
Yes. So firstly, when I first came across this understanding, I had this notion of, great, I really want to work with sports people. It's what I've been doing for the last 30 years, and I want to help them to have a better time of their mind. And then life had another idea for me. And the people that showed up in my life were people that were really struggling with their mental health or their mental illness, one might say. So I have worked with people out with sport for the whole of this time. And I would say my work has been sort of 50-50, really. So I've worked with people that have had depression, people that have been terminally ill, people that have recovered from cancer. people that have eating disorders, drug problems. It seemed to me that they were the people that I were that just came into my field, came into my world. And I thought, well, okay, it's not up to me, so I'm just going to go with it. And I did. And I had some really good coaching from the Pranskys, who I signed up with in 2015 and became one of their mentees. And a lady that was working with them, Barb Patterson, and she became my mentor there, and just reminded me that it's not up to us. And I could see that it was my eager mind that wanted to work with sports people, and that's not it. That's not it. So I knew that if I just got on with coming from a place of love and compassion and in service to humanity, then the people that I, if you like, were to work with would show up in my life. And that's what's happened. So, and about probably 3 years ago, I started to get more clients in sport. And I run my own netball club. So I have, in any case, for 11 years now, been working in small groups, groups of 4 during the holidays, and working with those players on an integrated program, which I developed for the University of Kent for their students. And it's an integrated program which says that we work 50%, if you like, in the classroom and in the conversation of understanding how amazing we are and understanding how life works. Because I said to the university, no, I don't want to work on court with your players in the normal way, because I know the juice for the squeeze is them understanding how amazing they are and how does life work. And they agreed. And so I developed this program for the University of Kent. I think it was back in 2017. And since then, I've evolved that program. And to be honest, it's one of my most attractive programs and most used programs. And that is now a one-to-one program. So, I integrate that. I teach netballers, and I also skill-wise and game understanding and performance analysis. But the main thing for me is if they know where to look for their incredible genius inside, they've got everything they need, not just for sport, but in their as a student and in their working life and older as an adult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's fascinating how people come to us with a particular thing that's, if it wasn't like this, all would be golden. It's a cracking starting point. There's a grain of truth in it, but there are layers behind that actually, by being able to see whatever it is that they think's important, either more clearly or realizing it's not relevant, their whole world opens up in many different ways that they weren't experiencing. And I think that's what I take the most joy from this work, is the unintended, beautiful consequences that come in the lives of the individuals that I work with, but more so, bizarrely, in the lives of their families and friends that they're now living amongst in a different way, more open, more free, more playful. That's just a wonderful gift. Beyond the realms of the sessions that we're having.
Isn't it? I mean, George Pransky has a saying, you probably heard it, all boats rise with the tide. And I love that saying. And it's so true that, I could have a business person come in and they're having problems with their business. And then they find that their relationships at home with their significant other and their children improve dramatically. And then suddenly their health improves dramatically because they somehow find more time to take care of themselves. And the thing they came into is, well, how's the business? Oh, no, that's fine. So, yeah, absolutely. Every part of your life. That's what I think is the real leverage of an understanding of the human experience, as uncovered by the late Sydney Banks, is that it doesn't just impact one part of your life, it impacts your entire being.
Yeah, it foundational sort of, I don't even think that gives it justice. It's the sort of bedrock of everything. It's unshakable. There is nothing that can knock it. And when you've got your feet on it, which we do all the time, but when you realize that, it's like, oh wow, okay. What's possible from here?
Yeah.
Because there's a surety, not in a cocky way, but in a, yep, this is all right. Let's see what we can do from here. That is something that everybody will have experienced in one way, shape, or form at some point in their lives, but they've probably attributed it to something else.
Cool.
Rather than realizing it, that's them truly understanding who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Dave. What I hear in that is that when we do understand who we truly are, so much falls off our mind. And we don't realize how much content we continually regurgitate that is old, it's redundant, and it's optional. It's not inevitable given the circumstance, even though it looks like it is.
Yeah. The most deep root, what look like the most deep rooted habits. Look like they're, that's forever. But it can't penetrate the bedrock. And when we see that, when that's seen by people, it just vanishes and evaporates. There may be an element of routine that it pops up, but it just doesn't make sense anymore. And when things don't make sense anymore, we don't do them.
That's right. A beautiful example of that would be very simply when I speak to sports people and I want to point them in the direction of how transient their reality is. I ask them, well, have you ever lost a game? And they go, yeah, of course. And I go, well, I don't know. What do you feel like after you've lost the game? And they give me all these feelings of disappointment and frustration. And then I say, well, what do you feel like come tea time? And they go, well, yeah, it's changed, hasn't it? And they see that, yes, you know what, my experience is changing and nothing else is changing. The result is still a loss. Mm-hmm. But my experience has changed. So what do I make of that? And when I see, oh, okay, when all of that noise goes away, what's left? Well, there's just this calmness, this calm and this love for the sport and this excitement and this curiosity to go again and see what we can do next time.
Mm. Yeah.
Because it looks like it's super complex what we're talking about, but it's very simple. It's so obvious, yet we miss it. And
just scribbling down curiosity to go again. It's so true. And that comes back to that playfulness. I don't know if I feel mischief when I'm in that feeling. But I'm certainly tapping into my inner toddler. They're like, okay, that's exciting. What's that about? Can we explore that, please? It's that boundless, limitless energy and enthusiasm to learn and explore that is still within every single one of us. That I just love trying to unpack with people and remind them that that's who they are and that they have got baked within the core of who they are, the curiosity to go again. And from there, see completely different possibilities than the ones that have been holding them, stuck for however long it might be.
Beautiful. I often tell a story about, imagine a group of, 12-month-old, 18-month-old toddlers all on a carpet in the living room, all playing with their individual toys, all rolling over at different states of development. And some of them roll over and they haven't quite found their limbs yet. And then they just keep, every week they come to the playgroup, they just try and find another limb. Now, they don't have limb finding lessons. They just find their limbs. And they keep falling over. They keep rolling over. And then one day, they just reach up on the coffee table and then they just make that big step up. And they are so happy with themselves. I've made it. And immediately, of course, they've made it. They fall down. And this, for me, is the joy of seeing the mistakes. And that's what I really work with my young athletes, to get really familiar with the learning process, such that when there is a mistake, it's viewed as your best friend, and it's viewed as, oh my word, what a gift it is to get the information from that mistake and go again. Because without that information, you wouldn't be able to go again in a slightly more evolved state.
Mm.
So for me, when we have missed shots, or I don't acknowledge it as a mistake. I acknowledge it as a gift, because it's given us data and information for the next piece. And at no point, this is interesting, at no point could you imagine those 12-month-old babies sitting on the carpet going, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get there first before them, or I wonder what my parents are going to think if I don't do that today and they do that today. There's the pressure of comparing ourselves to others is something we learn. And sadly, we learn that when we go to school. And we inadvertently forget our innate capacity for learning. And we suddenly think that we're not okay unless we're achieving. And because all of the acknowledgement is given to the kids that achieve. Straight away you go to school, that's great, you've got that. And we can inadvertently hear that we're not okay unless we are being the best. And that, for me, is a real issue with our young people. And all I do is help them to see, no, you're fine. You're an amazing expression of the life force. How amazing is that? And there's only one of you out of 8 billion people. How incredible is that? Mm. And I help them to see their uniqueness as an individual, but also the universal sameness. We come into the world the same way, we leave the same way. And we are divine expressions of the one source. And how amazing is that?
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to get to explore and play with, without doubt. Denise, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun, and I've scribbled down a number of things. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to end up titling this, and that's going to be quite fun. Mistakes, I think, might win, but we will see. We will see. Before we hit record, you mentioned that you've got something happening in March. I wondered if you'd like to tell the listeners about that.
Yes, we'll do. So I am a speaker at the Being You, Waking Up to What's Possible conference. It's in Devon from the 5th to the 7th of March. And I will pop the link, and just, hopefully if something has resonated with you, then that conference is an incredible opportunity to be in this conversation. It will be life-changing, So, buckle up if you come down. It is incredible. And I'll be speaking then more about these areas which impact the lives of sports people.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Okay. Thank you so much. Been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Take care. It's me again. Just a couple of final thoughts. Firstly, a reminder that my clarity and decision-making workshop is coming up on Wednesday, the 12th of March. And if you'd like more details about that, they're in the show notes. And just again, another reminder that the bite-sized breather 30-minute call that I do with my good friend Lynn Brannigan is on Wednesdays at 10:30 UK time. Again, if you'd like details about that, you'll find a link in the show notes that will be able to pass that on to you. And generally, if you'd like to get in touch, please do so. I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts about the show. And if there's anything particular that you'd like to hear, take care. Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guest next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.